conversations when it comes to challenges that money can prevent or present when it comes to business partners, romance partners, life partners, whatever you want to call them, and what that means for interpersonal relationships. So very happy to have a special guest joining us momentarily. And Laurel, very happy to have you here, and congratulations on your wedding anniversary.
I know, big 5, been posting on a lot of the social channels. I was telling our social team, who does a lot of our work out there too, I said, you can kind of play along, because a lot of folks that were actually at the wedding that had bets, that's kind of our funny thing. They're like, because it's both Jason and my, our second marriage done. They're like, no way. How are they going to make it? With his schedule, her schedule, how are they going to make it? So there was literally, I know Glenn Ledwell put bets. There was a whole bunch of people. So, our joke is, are you going to cash in on your bets out there? And see who actually said, oh, they'll make it. And those of you who are like, shit, I got to pay up. So that is, if you've seen some of the, if you're going to pay up some bets or who's buying each other some cocktails, that's what's going on. Ideally, we were going to head back to Banff and let whoever wanted to come back and have another party and have another ski trip. But that didn't happen because Canada is tight. They are very, very, very closed. And seeming to be closed to the end of April. They can't even go, get this, they canceled all trips to Mexico, all flights canceled. How do I know that? I didn't hear that from my Canadian fam. I heard that from a bunch of our airline pilots who actually work, who now have been downsized even further. So not good. So anyway, thanks for all of that. Super fun anniversary. And how long have you and Court made it? You guys are well more than 5 years. You got a whole batch of kids. You just started your kids late.
We're beyond 5. We were married September 13th, 2014. So that's 6 years at this point now, and 3 kids, and we're done with the kiddos. But no, it's always good to have that money conversation with your partner on a regular basis, especially times like these, because sometimes things can go sideways in a hurry. So that's why we're going to be talking about some of these stories that we've gotten. There's still time to submit your story at asklaurel.com/mystory. Enter your love and money story in and be registered for the opportunity to be selected as our love and money story winner. You'll have the opportunity to win a special prize, the Money Makeover by Laurel herself and the team. So we're very excited on that contest. Had a lot of entries, and today we're going to be going over some of those stories. Also have, for those of you who are joining us on the social channels, if you want to go ahead and share your story in Facebook, Twitter, some of the other ones that are out there, love to have those shared with us as well too. And in a moment, we're going to be having Eileen join us and talk a little bit about that love and money conversation that people need to be having, and some of the coaching that needs to come with that. So Laurel, I know you've been coaching people in that space for years. What are some of the things that you tell them right off the bat when they come to you with those questions?
Well, and here's what's interesting too. Eileen's going to be joining. John out there in our chat just said she had to restart her computer. So, she's been out and on a big business trip. So her computer's probably going, I don't have to go live again. So, what's interesting is it's rarely about when you have enough money. Usually the fights, the divorce, all of that happen because you don't have enough. So Eileen's going to be talking more to, I'm going to say, those of you who just have never had that conversation. One person comes with bad credit, right? So, one person makes way more money. They've never really shared. I mean, the bigger, more complex are the blended relationships. And given how old the kids are, what I see with a lot of the families, if the kids are younger and living, one family one spouse gets them and the other's not ready for them. So there's a lot to talk about. Everything you do touches money. That's just part of our overall brand at Integrated Wealth. Everything you do touches money in some form of however that's occurring for you. So what I tell a lot of them is, go by yourself. Like, I love giving independent assignments. So when you sign up and do your story, print off that contract and do it by yourself first. Like, from your own perspective in your own world, how would you answer this independently? Then come together, then see how the answers, and then work through the differences. And I know John and Eileen are actually part of what they're going to offer a lot of you is an opportunity to have some private conversations with them, because they've been doing this for a while, obviously getting into, our coaching, being coached by me. And now they have a weekly that sometimes Eileen says, goes through the weekend. So I think it's more than money. a money date is what I really think it is. But, Eileen said that's and Kent, there you go, 34 years. So the things, so I think a lot of you get the contract, go through it independently, and then just see where your differences are. I would challenge a lot of you, unless you have great communication, to probably go through that by yourself. I would actually come back into our community, let one of us, let our coaches kind of moderate through some of those differences and just give some perspective. Some of the perspectives that I see are, families that get married early and young typically just share everything because they're figuring it all out. But when they get married later and you each have your own lives, just for the simplicity of it all, I think, you keep each other separate, and then you can have a household, you can have an investment account. So it's, it's each independently. I'm going to say his and hers, but sometimes it's going to be whatever that whole, thing becomes. I think everybody gets it. So it's independent, and then together, whatever you build together. But it's just those conversations that you got to have. And again, I think where the fights come in the most is when it comes to, people overusing credit cards. One person's making the money, their spending habits are different. It's usually on, I'm not going to say the negative, but it's usually on the beginning stuff. It's how we're going to spend. Sometimes the higher net worth people come up with how we're going to invest. Like I have people that are millionaires joining the community now and have, say, 1.8 million. They collectively did it. So my answer to that was proportionally divided. Who contributed the most? Do you just divide it 900,000 each, and each of you go your own way? Meaning not go your own way in the relationship. But if the one wants to stay in mutual funds and bonds, stay right over there and let the other person run. Or it will become a very big issue, because then the next issue, follow the food chain. Well, I said follow the money, will be the legacy. How is this really going to be handed to your kids? So we're really serious about it. I know we have fun with it. We have fun with your stories. Thomas will be reading off some of the stories, and Eileen and I will be bantering how we would answer those. So I'm curious where our young lady is. So John, I know you're out there. Worst case, if we can't see her cute little face, let's have her dial in. So Thomas, if you just have a dial in number, let's get her expertise out here and her right away. Ron says, I get my email links after you start. So the only link we have up there right now is the My Story, Ron, and those of you who have joined us. And again, we're talking about love and money. And so there is the My Story, and it is a contract. So the way we're posturing it is that you are in a relationship, but quite honestly, do it with yourself. It just start, so interesting is a lot of you, when you first start having money rules, you don't realize like you don't have any. So this contract asks a lot of very specific questions. So even as an individual, you could go through and say, well, what are your rules for yourself? Then when you have a relationship, when you move into that relationship, at least you have some definition and some structure to what's important for you. So I think it's critical. So there you have that, Ron. And Kent, for you too, 34 years of marriage. It's fun to go back through it. Like it'd be interesting for you and your wife to go back through that, Kent. And each of you, again, print it out or do it independently. And the reason I say print it is because you're probably going to be sitting around a kitchen table or somewhere comparing notes, comparing your answers, comparing what you've done. Marlon contributes and says, credit cards keep separate. If so, one card needs to be sacrificed to do the event. The other one still can have good credit. You're correct. So I'm just going to interpret that broader, is if you have to, like with anything, I've had families separate to go through a bankruptcy. I've had families, like you said, Marlon, like really keep the credit cards. If one's got it, came to the relationship and whether it's bankruptcy, foreclosure, but tough credit score, keep it all with one, keep one in good standing at all times. And the other thing, like I'm going to go broader to other like business partners, is somebody on the team from a business partner perspective has to have good credit. I don't care who the lender is right now. You're not getting through without somebody putting up some financials. So I think it's just an overall amazing exercise for, people to do. And Jason and Henderson, yep, if one were to pass away, so the other one doesn't have to start over. Absolutely. The other thing, again, I think I mentioned this, is putting some of the older kids on bank accounts earlier. Not that they even can have view access or daily access. It's more that upon a death, upon something happening, they immediately have access. Like we have families right now, which by the way, we're having a huge celebration this Friday. Frank Shankowitz from Make-A-Wish Foundation passed away. We're having a huge memorial on Friday afternoon for him. And similar, like if you don't do these designations before you go, the family has to wait a long time, if not months sometimes, for the proper paperwork. So we take all of this very seriously, very comprehensively. And John says Eileen is almost here. So just encourage you, really go through it individually, even an older marriage. It's just a good thing just to kind of check back in. If nothing else, use that to be some of your legacy planning. Like I think, Kent, you and your wife have kids. You've been around quite a while. And it's a great conversation also to involve your kids, especially if your kids are married, have them go through it. So I think we're ramping up. Do we put some ads on this? I think we're ramping up our ad spend over the next little bit of time, because I want a lot of stories and I want a lot of people to be able to choose from to then do a makeover, which Eileen will be part of that makeover, and several other people. It really depends what you did yourself, depends on who the team will be to do a makeover. Some people that are getting some makeovers, it's interesting. Here's the answer. And I know, Thomas, you were part of that last weekend. Here's your makeover. Just go make some money.
Yeah.
You know, some of you, like, there isn't a lot to make over. There's not a lot that you've done either way. I love Eileen calls it a thin credit profile, but you got kind of a thin business history. So for some of you, just go make some money. And that is your makeover. And then, you know, after a few months, come back to the graduate marketplace. By the way, we're doing another graduate marketplace next Friday. How was graduate marketplace? A lot of the folks that are listening,
very good. We had over 45 people on throughout the day. It was the best one we've had throughout the course of doing it. And it was very exciting to see that many people on a cold Saturday afternoon across the country, connecting with one another, doing ask, tell, asks, and making money. So it was very, very fun to see everyone at the marketplace. It was a great event, probably one of the best attended one we've had in several months, and very excited to see everyone rocking and rolling here as we're getting more into 2021.
Absolutely.
And there's Eileen.
Here I am. Have we?
All right. So welcome, young lady. I was just sharing that I think everyone, whether they're an individual, it helps set some initial money rules and kind of just thinking about money. So do it as an individual, do it as a married couple. Like Kent earlier in the thread said, he'd been married 34 years. I said, great to go back and just go through that contract individually and then come back together and compare some of the notes. So again, those of you that are just joining, Eileen, talk a little bit about you and John, who's out in the chat, and your money night. And then I think we're going to have Thomas go read out some love and money stories right away and get to it.
Absolutely. So first I want to say happy anniversary, Miss Laurel.
Yep, thank you.
I know it's 5 years. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yep, and our first date was 6 years ago. So we got married.
Oh, wow.
We got married. We re-walked our first date in Banff, Canada. So our first date was in Banff on February 16th. We got married on 15. We got married on 16/16. And here
That's
we
an
are.
awesome idea.
But you know, our funny joke is we're just starting to live together because we've commuted this whole time. He had his own company, he had kids in Canada. And we always, you know, our joke was, you know, we get along so well because we get away for a little moment. So I still think there's some awesome truth to that. And just taking some breaks. And not like big breaks, but you know, he'll be gone for 2-3 days. And right now we're still going back and forth between Boise. And if I was better, I just don't want, I told Tim, I said, unless you have a recliner I can sleep on, or I can find a hotel with a recliner, I'm still there. Not in, I don't think I can sit in a bouncy car for 7 hours driving to Boise. And
no, I don't think that'd be good right now.
With terms with my conditions. So all that being said, we're going to spend our anniversary week together. So talk about you and John. You guys have, so like, is it a certain date? Is it Monday night? Is it Tuesday night? Is it Wednesday?
Yes. So the whole
specific.
The whole thing about the money rules, you know, and you made a very good point. Until you actually live with someone, dating is one thing. That's a whole nother story, because what's mine is mine, what's theirs is theirs, kind of. And when you come together and you start actually living together, it's a whole different ball game. And that happened with John and I. So we were together for 3 years before we lived together. And the money date night came about because as we started to have those conversations about money, because we were now combining things, it was a struggle for me, I got to tell you. When we first started having the money conversations, I was so used to spending. John's a saver. In every relationship, you have different types. It's not always going to be the same. Sometimes it will be, and that's a little bit more of a struggle. So we came up with, we did this years ago, and it's really helped in our relationship with actually having a money date night. So we choose in the middle of the week, every single week. Others can choose whether they want to do it every other week or every month. We like, because the intimacy grows back in your relationship and the respect and the love that you have for one another, that doing it on a weekly basis, it's not a chore like some might think it would be. It's a date night, and you get to talk about your money and your goals and the values that you share together. And it's just grown from there, that we actually created a program to teach others how to do what we've been doing. It's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. And congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
And I think for a lot of you, this, you got to be very cautious about the make wrong, and stay away from that conversation versus just interesting. You think like that, interesting, have that conversation. And Eileen's going to give you guys an opportunity to work with her and John at the end of our broadcast. But let's get to some of the stories. So Thomas, you want to read off some of the interesting stories that have been submitted, and we'll give a little bit of input. Eileen's going to continue to do that. I know you're going to continue to do that. And Eileen will give an extraordinary opportunity for those of you who are struggling with this conversation to get some help.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stories here that share some similar themes. And one of the ones that we see a lot the most is where a couple gets together and one of them goes to school, starts a career or whatnot, and then starts making more money than the other person. And then that's when the relationship fell down, or that's when the divorce came or whatnot. And that was notable because it happened in a number of stories. So I'd love to get your feedback on that dynamic and how to plan, or how to, or what you would just coach for and with in that regard.
Eileen, you want to lead?
So absolutely. So for me, and this actually happened with John and I, so I'm going to pull from a lot of our experiences, because I'm sure other people have been going through that. So I made a lot less than John did in the career that I had at the time. And when we did come to live together, and now you have to talk about how are you going to share in those expenses. A lot of people think it's a 50-50 deal. It's a 50-50 split no matter what. And for me, that was difficult because I didn't make as much as John did. So why am I paying just as much? So we researched that, and we came up with the idea of you combine the dollar amount that you both make, and then you just get a percentage. So if I made less, obviously I'm paying a less percentage than what he would be paying because he's bringing in more of the money. So that's first and foremost, because that's going to take away a lot of the stress right there. Now, when you have the partner that starts making more money than you, and this happened in my previous relationship when I was married before, I made more than my husband at that time. He couldn't handle that. It was a struggle because sometimes the person that's making more has more control. And when you have your money date night and you have this conversation and you commit with having that contract, when you commit to sharing everything in a respectful way with each other, you're going to be able to see what each other's values are and what your goals are. And then you can move forward with that. You're working towards a common thing. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It shouldn't be a struggle. You love each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm just going to say ditto. I mean, it's critical. I mean, yep. What's another question?
Another story, and this kind of gets more to a little bit of cultural differences. Our relationship between love and money seems to suck really bad, i.e. the experience of a macho man wanting to provide, but he can't. Same time, he devalues everything I do and demeans and belittles me and doesn't listen to my advice or input. So in that situation where someone might have a partner who culturally has a more, I don't want to use any word right there, but tends to think the male should be the one who's providing and that the female should not be. What do you do in that situation?
So for me, my quick response to that is going to be, are you in the right relationship? You have to figure that out first and foremost. But this topic is about your money and how you're going to relate to each other about the money conversation. So when you go through an exercise and you look at what your values are, first of all, is this person honoring their partner? Are they respecting who they are and where they're coming from? And that's where the conversation needs to start happening first. Who are you? What do you value? How much do you love me? It is a question we ask ourselves. And how do we have that conversation so that we're respecting each other's wishes?
Yep. Well, and you're much more politically correct. I'm going to say the guy's super secure. Like if your woman's making it, or anybody in your family, even your kid, because I see families, I'm gonna just point to like some of the men who put their sons down, right, to like keep them in a little box. So to me, there's all sorts of other issues going on. Like you said, let's keep it about money, but I had to like you said, that's an obvious one. I would say you can't just talk about money, you probably can't talk about a lot. So that's probably, like you said, the bigger dynamic. But clearly in those situations, and I like, Thomas, how you couched it as cultural, so I'll go with it. That was really nice. But in those situations, I mean, you really, you do need to, each of you make your own money and then have your contribution to the household and then see where it stands. And, as far as the put downs and all of that, it's just, those are non-tolerated conversations for.
Exactly. You're not honoring each other by doing that at all.
You're not even close. So that's more of a therapist, and I am not that.
Right.
We do have some cool therapists on our big table, though, that can really walk you through some of those conversations and how to have them. I think we have some pretty big guesses. I mean, we were all in relationships.
Right.
Our started with values-based relationships, and so we aren't in those situations. So I'd say get a therapist or somebody who can really walk you through it. Or just let him come to my workshop. Boy, will I have fun.
Now, not all the stories involve romantic life partners. Some of them just involve business partners. So the one story that caught my eye here was a person who said, I'm the owner of an internet radio station. I started with 4 partners in 2017. And let's just say that either everyone walked away or I had to fire them for stealing. I'm still running the station, but as an army of one, I have now lost income as well from a spouse as well too. So in terms of how do you handle business partners in that situation?
Operating agreements. And I can tell you, and Eileen, you see it because you're in a lot of, women kind of groups, and a lot of women groups, although they're lovely, that's what they are. They're like girlfriend groups. And when I hear people say, let's do something together, I immediately say, what entity, what operating agreement, what's going to be the deal, and what are the roles, right? So before those people dropped or even embezzled, I mean, there should have been rules around the bank account and controls on the bank account. That shouldn't even have been allowed. So I'd say entity, operating agreement. And then obviously what I'm hearing probably through the question is that the person who's endured it all is the one taking from the family money to help keep the business alive. So the other thing you do when things start embezzling is you immediately cut. I mean, you've got to stop. You stop the bank accounts, you freeze accounts, you freeze everything. You don't dismantle them, because if you actually do need to go to court or file an incident, I mean, which is the other thing is, did you file a police report? So many people forget to do the obvious. But you got to stop it immediately. And I stopped the corporate activity immediately. And then, but again, that's why I always have entities on the shelf, because you can immediately pull one off, hook up the merchant service, and be back in business in the next day. So typically once you get moving, you'll get more sophisticated, or we're going to teach you how to get more sophisticated. Regardless of the situation. So you always can stay, nimble and moving. But that's an operating agreement, similar to this contract, but it's a way bigger contract. Eileen, what would you say?
Well, I would agree with what you just said. And John, who is my partner in life, but my business partner also, he is a contracts specialist. He's a contracts manager, and he will not let us do anything unless that contract is the way it's supposed to be. So I think that's first and foremost of what you need to do there.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Now,
right. What else we got?
2 stories here that I think go hand in hand. The first is from John. He says, I love to have money and my wife loves to dispose of it. I want to pay off bills as quickly as possible. My wife feels that we will always be in debt.
You want to be in debt, not bad debt, but you want to, it's okay to have some debt, and you want to rotate that debt. So I'm sorry, what's the last part of the question?
Now there's a follow-on question from someone else that I think might, provide some good insight. Mike said, my wife and I used to fight about money, but with Laurel's guidance, we've reached a new level of security that allows us peace of mind.
Yay! That's why we're here.
I think a lot of the debt conversation is honestly education. Between Eileen and I mean, we'll give you education. It's okay to be in, it's okay to be in good debt. Bad debt you want to get rid of over time. But it also sounds like there's a spending differential. And I'm going to be honest, like if you want to be the big spender, then go make some money, right? I'm never one to say, reduce your lifestyle. I'm always the go make money conversation and have whatever you want. So again, I think I like that, yeah, you had brought the proportionalization in, Eileen, because I think a lot of people don't proportionalize and use that as a different structure, especially if you're an older adult getting married.
Mhm.
Yeah, that wasn't something that I learned growing up because that's not how my family ran things. To me, I love numbers. It's common sense. If someone makes more than their partner, why are they paying 50-50? Just
Yep.
never made sense to me. It wasn't logical.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, several of the stories that we have here share a theme and typically involve a wife that had a spouse who more or less left them with family, without family, whatnot. But essentially, at that point, the woman is kind of on their own. And Laurel, you have a saying that you use all the time that I'm giving you a nice softball for here, but want to have you speak to that because it was in several of the stories we had here for the contest.
A man is not a plan. A man is not a plan. They are very handy dandy. I mean, awesome, but they are not what you need to rely on. And too many women do it. Now, there's a whole different conversation of consciously saying, like, especially like, if you choose to, or they choose to have young kids and take some time and go home. I mean, that should have all been sorted. You had 9 months to figure that out. That shouldn't be like, oh shit, we're shocked. You had 9 months to kind of sort out how that, especially the immediacy of being, Steve's within a week of having another baby. Like those conversations, who's going to work, when they're going to work, how the money's going to keep flowing. Those need to be like as you come into it. If they're not, get to it right away. What else would you say about? I think a lot of like women lay down their power all the time to it, and I actually don't believe. I haven't really met men. If you have a real candid conversation, there's usually something below that we can get to pretty quick of why. Or what the issue is of why they're not sharing, completely transparently with their
Right.
of why. I mean, they need to. Anything happens to them, they've disabled their family.
Exactly.
And I have the responsibility conversation. It's a responsibility to let not only the wife, but the older kids know what's going on. I mean, they die together in a car accident. Somebody better be able to step into that family and take over. And most people think none of this stuff's ever going to happen when the obvious it is going to happen. You only got a certain, time clock on the planet.
Well, it's things that people don't want to think of. Nobody wants to plan for the what ifs are going to happen in your life. But having that money conversation, money is with you, just like credit is with you from the day you start it to the day you pass this earth. It's important that you are both on the same page about what your money conversation is going to be about. And going back to, Thomas, what you said earlier about the husband likes to save, the wife likes to spend it all. That's a conversation about your values. What's important to the two of you? What's first important to individuals, and then what's important as a couple of where you're going to take your financial success to. It's all about a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, those were some of the stories that we had here, but there's one thing I wanted to bring up because I do think it makes sense in this context, and both with Laurel and Eileen. What would the two of you say when it comes to running a business or operating a business with your life partner? Because obviously you both do that at some level, but how do you manage the professional and personal side and keep it clean or just keep it bearable?
Well, I should say the comp part, it's just sort of back to, how we just teach I shouldn't say the basics, but a revenue producing day, a very compartmental time blocking. So I'm on 2 more quick broadcasts and then I'm out. Like we are having our anniversary. We're doing you've got to really kind of just be rigorous about it. You got to be rigorous about that time, the blocks, the not bleeding. I think the times like for us where we bleed around topics would be probably when we're out taking a walk or doing, something. But when we ski, well, you kind of keep it compartmentalized as a way that we've, done it.
Mm.
Exactly. That works for John and I. We will every night we actually have an hour conversation because I need to let him know what's been going on for the day, what has been happening, what kind of revenue is coming in, who we're servicing. And then for our money date night, we sit down and we go over all of our personal, but then we also go over all the business. And the reason it's so important that we do it that way, because as a couple working together, it is going to commingle a little. And when we talk about the business side, it just empowers us more to be able to be that loving couple when it comes to our personal life too. So we manage things so much better when we have that conversation together. And
And
like
Laurel,
I said, we do it every week.
mhm.
Yep.
Laurel, can you speak real quick? Because I know you have to hop off and we don't want to keep you from your anniversary celebration today. But can you speak real quick to your idea of planning for divorce while falling in love? That's a saying you use a lot on the workshop, and I want to make sure we bring it up during this session today.
Yep. Well, it's the same, like in a relationships, it's doing a prenuptial, right? It's deciding this before you actually get married and saying, oh God, we should have realized that, things are going to be all this different. And a big one, like for us, was our blended kids. I mean, he's got very active mothers with his two kids. Don't have dad, so I mean, very different. He's going to be very involved in my kids, not involved. All those things make a difference. So all the money, all the parenting, all those things, I think you got to go into. As far as a business, when we say design your divorce while you're in love, to the other person's point about the embezzlement, is you didn't design the plan, you didn't design the structure, and it's easy because you get excited, like the program or the project gets exciting, so you want to jump. But then once you're in and you didn't, design, how do you get out of this? How do you end it? Right? I mean, not that Kyle and I are talking about an ending, we're talking about where we want to take the book. But we're about ready to contract. We're in the process actually of contracting a book, which is new entity, new bank account, how we're going to regulate it, how we're going to do all of it. I mean, that leads to hours in our situation. Right. I mean, very similar. I've got this huge, 25-year history, big 20 in integrated wealth. And Kyle and I wrote a book, right? Which is going to hugely influence my world, not as much the world that he's built, nor does he want it to. That's a whole conversation that, and Thomas is knowing, he's very involved in it. So you got to design walking out, divorcing and being friends is kind of the model. How do you, in a business, how do you get to go again and still be friends? And in a relationship, especially assuming they're kids, how are you going to walk through this and walk out of it if you needed to, and everybody be okay. Okay, so we're going to share a few more stories. I do have to go jump to a little clubhouse chat, but I'm leaving you in very capable hands. And then after that, Kevin Harrington and I, by the way, those of you who are on Clubhouse, at 1 within the next 30 minutes, we'll be taking pitches. Kevin Harrington, we did a put a shark in your tank. Why do you need a shark? It's not just for money, you need brains. So I know Eileen will be jumping in over there. Those of you, if you haven't been invited to Clubhouse, I know Steve's out there, could probably send out an invitation, but I'm going to go over there, and I will meet you over in Clubhouse for those of you. The rest of you stay right here until this wraps up. We have a few more stories we're going to go through, and Eileen has an amazing opportunity for you to work with her and her husband to really guide you through this conversation. So thanks, you guys, and
enjoy your anniversary, Laurel.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So a couple more stories here from what we've had on the Love and Money, the Love Money Story contest. One woman talked about how she spent $10,000 on a real estate investment trust and lost 95% of her investment, and that was essentially the crux of her story. Eileen, in terms of protecting yourself from that, or recovering from downsides, what do you speak to, or how do you address something like that?
So one of the first things that I would want to do with them is do a full gap analysis to see where all the other money has flown. And I would question how that was actually in a trust and then 95% of it was lost. So what was the structure that was set up for that? And is it set up properly now? Have you reconstructed any of that to make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Another question, or another story. Money conversations have been very difficult for me in my 20 plus years in our relationship. Unconscious deference seems to operate best in keeping the peace. So it sounds like the money story is that if they don't talk about it, it can't blow up. Your thoughts on that?
So I will share my personal experience with that. It's not a good thing. When you're keeping things inside, when you're hiding things, when you're not on the same page when it comes to your money goals and the values that each one of you have around money, it is just setting yourself up for disaster. And if this is a relationship that you are going to be continuing throughout your lifetime, you want to get on the same page when it comes to the money conversation. Because I got to tell you, for me, like I said in the beginning, it was very difficult for me to have money conversations with John, my partner in life. And I'm so used to being so independent that I felt like I was giving up something. But what I learned was that having that conversation and the two of us getting on the same page, the mutual respect for each other grew, the intimacy in our relationship grew, the entire conversations that we have on a daily basis are so much better. So I would urge you, and there are ways to do it. And the first thing is to have a values conversation. What do the two of you really value individually and then coming together as a couple? Because it is not something that you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm. And let's take that to the next step. What if the spouse themselves, as one of the people talked about here, is just plain unwilling to actively participate in the money conversation?
That happens a lot. And I don't know whether it's a fear of the unknown, like where is this going to lead to, or what's going to happen in the future, or if it's a control issue. And I'll share a story with you. I had a client that was getting ready to work with me, and the pricing objection was there. How much? Well, I have to talk to my partner. I have to talk to my husband. I have to talk to my spouse. I don't know if we can do this or not. So I would first question, which I did with this individual, what are your beliefs around money and what are your beliefs about investing in yourself? And we came to an agreement and understanding that the spouse, the partner, needed to be a part of the conversation because they did not see the value of what their partner was trying to do in the first place. And that happens a lot. If there's coaches out there and you're working with someone and you get to the end of the conversation and the person realizes that, no, they're not the ones to make the money decision by themselves. They need to include their partner. Have a conversation with the partner because it all comes down to how you value the investment in yourself and your family. And the other individual needs to see that too. I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Eileen, two stories that are the same, and then we'll let you speak a little bit about what Laura was previewing there.
Sure.
Had two stories where someone talked, or where the person talked about losing a spouse. Not that the spouse, took off, but physically lost them to passing.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get on their feet again from that. A little bit different when the spouse walks out versus when they pass. What are your, typical things you talk about in that regard, or, what do people need to think about for that?
Sure. So the Money Date Night program that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute here, it's not just for couples. It's actually for individuals also. And someone in that scenario, in that situation, they're going to benefit from being able to get their financial picture in alignment. Obviously, they have other emotional things that they have to work through, and that is not this conversation. When you go through and gather all of your data that you need to have, when you start looking at what your finances are, when you're ready to do that, everything can be laid out for you so that you're able to see what your financial picture is looking like. And then you can base decisions on a logical view of what you have in front of you. So I would say, first and foremost, take care of yourself, take care of the emotional side. Hopefully you have some people that are supporting you with that. And then you can start to look at where the money is, where the expenses are, what's happening, and be able to go through and align that with what you want your future to look like.
Very good. So Eileen, talk a little bit more about that that process, that date night, and how you're helping folks.
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen in a moment as soon as I find it. Okay, let's share the screen here. So I just want to walk you through what John and I have put together in a Money Date Night so that people can understand why it's important and what you can do to help improve your money story with each other. Thomas, let me know when you see the slide.
We can see it.
Awesome. So during the entire month of February, Laurel has been doing a Love and Money series. And since you're a part of this group and this community, we wanted to put something together for the entire community that would help benefit having no money conversations. So it all starts with having a money date night. And just imagine, if any of this sounds familiar to you, that you argue and fight when it comes to money, you're constantly blaming the other person. You never seem to be on the same page, and you find that your financial goals just don't match up. You feel like you're burning money sometimes. And you almost always feel like you're broke or you're living beyond your means. And some of these things can also apply if you are a business partner. If some of these things that you're going through, it makes you feel that your stress levels are just building up and you just don't know what to do. And if you lack intimacy in your relationship, because the whole thing about this particular course, it's all about a money date night. It's getting closer to your partner. And unfortunately, the number one reason relationships fail is about money. We either avoid it or we just don't want to have the conversation about it. And it needs to happen. The conversation should not be that challenging. Think back on when you first met each other. Laurel just gave us a great story. Today's her 5-year anniversary. And she just gave us a conversation about what they did when they first met, and that on their year anniversary, they went back and they revisited and had their date for when they first met. That's a beautiful thing. So think back when you first met your partner. You were attracted to them for some reason. You started dating. Everything was beautiful in the beginning. And it was just such an exciting time for you because it was new. You were getting to know someone. And then as you get into your relationship sometimes, and I talked about this earlier, if you move in together, you get married, you're living together for a time, the money conversation is going to start to happen. And you want to be able to be in a position where you can have it in a very loving, caring, and respectful way. And the reason that you want to improve your relationship conversations about the money is because you gain more understanding of each other. It gives you a better connection, and you renew your love and your intimacy. And the reason that I keep saying intimacy, because the name of the course I want to introduce you to is called Intimate Money Rendezvous. It's a couples money date night. And you've already met me, and some of you in the community have met my life partner, John Vasir. He's actually on the call with us today, listening in. And this is no ordinary date night. As you're going through, we have set this up in such a way that you will have a mutual commitment. You actually have to sign off on a contract of how you're going to conduct this money date night. You will ignite intimacy and passion into your life. And since it's all about money, we'll be doing a money mapping session. And you will align your values and be able to have a deeper connection as you're having this conversation. We get started by connecting with your partner. We have some fun exercises for you to do there. You will sign a consensual commitment and agreement. And notice the word sensual is in there. You'll be able to build an abundant money cash flow, and you'll have seductive money intentionals and gratitude rewards. And it all begins with love and respect. Setting the tone of the money date night, you get to decide when and where. Obviously, the first one would want to be in your home. Make it very comfortable. You'll get to choose the location, the day, and the theme. And during this money date night, you'll be giving gratitude and blessings for the money that has come and gone. Money flows in and out of our lives. And how we look at it, and this is part to answering some of those questions earlier. My partner doesn't want me to talk about money. My partner is a spender and I'd like to save. When you're blessing and giving gratitude for what's coming into your life and what you allow the money to purchase for you, it is a whole different conversation. And then you'll have an opportunity to define the intentions. These are your money values. How do you value things versus how does your partner? We actually have an interesting and fun exercise where you're going to learn what your money types are. This entire course we normally sell for $9.97. And because of the community and Laurel twisted my arm, we are only doing this for $297. And if you go to asklaurel.com/moneydate, you'll be able to access the information there to see what all is included. But let me just give you a recap. You want to connect with your partner. You'll be learning what your spending type is and what your money beliefs are. And it's very important that you both understand where each other is coming from as far as those money beliefs. Some people grew up thinking there was never enough money around. Some others grew up there was an abundance of money and I could just spend it whenever I wanted to because I always knew there was going to be more. Whatever your beliefs are, that's going to affect your partner. And you want to be able to share that with each other. We're going to increase the intimacy within your relationship. And the whole purpose of this is to fulfill desired future financial outcomes together as a partner. Now, we've designed this course and broke it up into 3 modules that if you actually just went through the whole course, you'd be done in 2 hours, but that's not what we want you to do. Each module builds upon the previous one, and we want to set the tone for when you actually hold your money date night. As you can see, I talked about commitment earlier. It starts with that consensual agreement. You both need to agree that, yes, this is what you're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Again, the price is only $297. And if you just go to askloral.com/moneydate, you will be able to access everything there. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen, Thomas, and bring you back. And I don't know if there's anyone in the chat that has any questions, but let me just summarize this. The whole reason John and I put this course together is because we struggled. And we struggled for years because I am a spender. Now I get to spend it on investments because Laurel is my mentor and now I know where to spend it. And John was a saver and still is. And I'm so thankful and blessed that he is, because if it wasn't for John, I wouldn't be able to travel and do what I do to help people to get where they want to get to in their financial world.
So if you have questions for Eileen, you can put them into the chat box right now. Go ahead and go to askloral.com/moneydate. If you are interested and you would like to learn more, or you can go ahead and purchase that right now. That is a ripping good offer, as Laura would say. So Eileen, thank you for sharing that with the community at that price. And let me ask you this: for some of the people who have taken the course, what have been some of the unexpected results they've shared with you from taking it?
So our main thing is about building the intimacy and the romance and the connections back in your relationship. That is the whole purpose of us doing this. The extra benefit is because they took the time to learn about the money beliefs of their partner, they understood. You know how sometimes when you're having a conversation and you don't think your partner's listening to you, or you don't feel like you're being heard by your partner? The common answer, the common thing that people have been telling us is that we hear each other now. We get it. So they're able to make financial decisions together instead of fighting each other about what the other person is thinking.
Perfect. And Eileen, well, I apologize if you're reiterating, but what sort of, is there any sort of guarantee or satisfaction type element you have with that offer as well too?
Absolutely. So we believe that anybody going through this course with us, and this is a self-pace, you can do it at your own pace. We highly recommend you do it together with your partner. Some people have gone and done some of the exercises on their own and then come together and share the results, which is perfectly fine too. But you always want to come back and do it as a partner. So for this amount, for the $297, because our elite program is actually $1,500. For this particular amount, we're going to give you access to us for 3 months, and we're going to make sure that we answer any of the questions that you have. There is no refund on this particular type of product. Mm-hmm. However, you do get access to John and I. You will have contact with us via email. And then we will once a month, this is a bonus that I didn't talk about earlier because I'm just now making it up. I think once a month, you're going to have a conversation with us. We're going to get on a call in a group fashion, and we're going to make sure that you're moving along the modules at your pace, but in a comfortable way. The bottom line to all of this and the benefit for going through this entire course, and singles can go through this too, because the exercises, they're going to help you when you do find that significant other that you want to spend time with. And even if you're dating, because I got to tell you, there are people that I know that even in the dating situation, and you know I'm all about credit also, when they find out what the credit scores are of their potential partner, sometimes that's a deal breaker. So you want to have these conversations and you want to be ready for them.
Perfect. Well, as we said, folks, go to askloral.com/moneydate to take advantage of that offer. And this will be a perfect time of year to have that course, have that conversation, since it is February and love and money are in the air. So Eileen, thank you so much for being a special guest and joining us today. On behalf
Absolutely.
of Laurel and everyone here on IWS, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And Eileen, I will give you the last word before we end the webinar update today. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Eileen. Askloral.com/moneydate, and we will see you all very soon.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. Bye, everyone.